never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, buy a home where you have to pay HOA fees. Some of these homes inside of these subdivisions that you guys are looking at are designated as condos, even though it may not be in a building. So the general sentiment is that a condo is basically like an apartment that you can own. It's more than that. When you go into a lot of these subdivisions, they designate them as condos, but then they tack on a bunch of these association fees. Shout out to Lil Black Duck 2001. I'm definitely going to be reading that super chat shortly. But now places like over here in Miami Beach are suffering as a result of it. Let me show you what's happening, and then we're going to have a discussion.
News Channel 8's Lenny Supal has been following the conversation. She joins us more in Tampa with more.
Good evening, Stacey. The numbers are staggering, and it's unclear when or if they will come down. And we've had many viewers reach out to us, including one woman who says her HOA dues jumped by triple digits, and now she's facing dire circumstances because of it.
It looked like paradise out here. I had no idea that that could happen.
The perils of living in paradise taking a toll on Rafina Capelli. She's lived in her St. Petersburg condo for 28 years, but this month she's grappling with a new reality, the skyrocketing cost in her HOA dues.
It was $376 for years, and then all of a sudden in October, they said it's going up 43%. What worries me is that I won't have a roof over my head and that I...
So now you got to pay condo fees at $700 a month. That's a whole nother rent payment. That's a whole nother rent payment, especially for people on a fixed income. A lot of people went down here, they came down to Florida, and they bought condos that's off the water, and it gets beat up by the ocean. And now we ain't even talking about nothing that's off the water. We just talking about a regular space, or neglect sets in that they largely don't fix up the place, or they do not maintain it the way that they need to maintain it and stuff like that. Elevators break down, cost of inflation, having maintenance people, having to switch up and get different managers of the property management companies in order to do it, and they got to raise the prices. And who's going to be the people that basically sharing a price gouge? It's going to be you. She has been living in this place for almost 30 years, and they practically are raising the rates year after year to where they've almost tripled every month.
I really don't have much to say about it. After 28 years, it seems really unfair.
It's a challenge condo owners are facing across Florida. Right now, condo associations are under review to see if they're complying with a new state law requiring reserve funds to be sufficient in case major foundation or structural repairs are needed. It's one of many reasons why condo owners are facing rising HOA dues and assessment fees.
The Florida condos have allowed their reserves to get very low, and that this condo was kicking the can down the road.
It is very scary. They don't know where they're going to go right now.
Sarah Taylor is a real estate consultant in Pinellas County and noticing more condo owners are putting their properties on the market because many are priced out of their homes.
People are competing to sell their properties. We're seeing price reductions to entice buyers to come in. And we're seeing people who just can't afford it having to list their condos and find another place to move.
But for Rufina, finding another place to move on a fixed income seems impossible.
You feel very alone. I guess aloneness is the main thing I'm feeling now. Terribly alone.
I feel so bad for her because she probably was married at one point and her husband passed away, and then he was on a fixed income, or they got a pension or something like that, or they, getting some combination of Social Security and then living on a fixed income. I can't leave my people in this state. And I'm telling you that amongst other things, 3 of the biggest issues, and they still the same biggest issues as they were last year, is homelessness and single-parent households and the border crisis. Those are the 3 biggest issues, in my opinion, that's happening throughout the United States. And part of what you see happening is it kind of upends how we look at it kind of depends how we look at financing a property, right? Because now you have to take into consideration not just what the payment is, that 30-year payment, that 15-year payment, that 10-year payment is. You have to also factor in, because I see some people in the chat saying, oh, my condo fees is low or whatever. Hers was low too. Hers was low too. And they're going to continuously go up every single year. Inflation affects so much of what we do today that we just bake it into the price of living. You're going to be paying for air pretty soon. Let me share with you another guy that I was looking at his video as far as these HOA fees to break it down a little bit deeper. And he speaks on what's happening out in Florida also.
Would you believe me if I told you there was a condo crisis headed for Florida? A financial tsunami of epic proportions? Well, you should. And today I'm going to tell you why. Welcome back to my channel. I'm sitting in front of the town hall here in South Palm Beach, right next to Lantana along A1A. And I'm sitting in between the Intercoastal Waterway behind me, which is to my west, and the Atlantic Ocean, which is right in front of me to the east. And sandwiched in between those two bodies of water are thousands of condos. Condos over here, condos over there. And this scene, a condo row, as you will call it, is replicated all throughout the state of Florida. East Coast, West Coast, everywhere. And for many, they bought these condos back in the 80s and the 90s, maybe in the 70s, and they bought them pretty inexpensively. And at the time...
Don't that look beautiful? It looks beautiful, but how much is it going to cost you?
The monthly HOA fees were pretty inexpensive as well. I know some people bought these condos for $50,000, $80,000, and they only had a monthly HOA of maybe $100, maybe $200. And that was that way for a long time. Now, I specifically chose this area because there's a lot of condos up and down this street. It's got a great sidewalk for walking on, which makes it easy for me. And it is right next to the ocean and the water. And part of what I'm going to talk about today has a lot to do about what happens to these condos, the wear and tear that takes place in a condo building, especially one that's sitting right there on the ocean with the salt air and sand and hurricanes and tropical storms and just the elements consistently beating on the buildings. So we're going to talk a little bit about.
Marcus Hebron says you can buy a condo in a Chi for $50,000 with a $1,500 HOA fee. What? I have one property. Of all of the properties that I own, I have one property. And they be giving me the blues. Boy, I have one property and I pay, let me see, what do I pay? HOA. I don't even know how to get to it. I gotta go to my Gmail. I got one property that I pay HOA fees for. I actually just paid them at the end of the year. But I pay once every 3 months, so I pay quarterly. I pay $135 a month quarterly. Yep, I pay $135 a month quarterly for my HOA fees. And if I don't pay it by the 26th of the following month, then you know what I'm saying, they're going to be on my head top, man. Yep, I pay $135 every 3 months for my HOA fees. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Yep, and I paid it on the, what was that, the 20th before I flew out here to Miami. And that junk was aggravating. Yep, I pay $135 every quarter. It used to be $30 a month and $90 a quarter. Now it's going up to $135 every quarter. So it's the only property that I own that I pay HOA fees, and it's in a great subdivision. And largely, we haven't had any problems with that particular property or anything like that. But and it's a detached property, meaning that it's an actual house, right? It's not an actual like in a building like an apartment. But I don't like HOA fees. It aggravates me.
about that. Now, I mentioned in the video that a lot of the people who have these condos throughout Florida are snowbirds. It's like a second home for them. But there's also a whole bunch of people who have condos as their primary residence. And a lot of those people are retirees, people on fixed income. And they bought those condos, as I said, 20, 30 years ago. They got it at a good price, and the monthly HO fee wasn't so bad. So if you've been following the news, you've seen that insurance in the state of Florida has progressively been getting worse and worse and more costly for homeowners. A lot of that has to do with the insurance claims that people...
Larry, you pay $450 a month in condo fees? That's $5,000 a year. Y'all crazy on that.
Put on roofs and filing false claims about roofs needing to be replaced. That's a whole other video. And for the past couple of years, insurance premiums have progressively been going higher and higher for all homeowners here in South Florida.
And most places in Florida is not even, they're going without insurance going forward because they just can't afford it. Citizens, Progressive, everybody has been leaving the state of Florida. And the people that are staying are raising the prices so much to where the property taxes, or I'm sorry, the insurance is crazy. Property taxes is out the roof because that's the main way that they collect the majority of they monies in these states that don't have any income tax. So it's always going to be a yin and a yang, right? So let's say you move over to Texas or you move down to Florida, and it's great because, hey, I don't have any state income tax over here. I go over to Nashville over in Tennessee. How do they get you? Well, they get you because you're going to have to pay way more in property taxes than you would if you was to live in somewhere like Indiana or Ohio, right? And you gonna get mollywopped either way. You're going to get ransacked and mollywopped either way. And you never truly really own your home because if you don't pay your property taxes, then you can get your home taken after 2 or 3 years of not paying your property taxes, right? And HOA fees, as far as what I've experienced here in Michigan, it has nothing to do with insurance. It has nothing to do with water. It has nothing to do with all of that. Water is separate. Electric is separate. Everything is separate. Property taxes is separate. And so you're just being taxed to death. You're being taxed to death. And you're going to be told what you can't do inside of your own property.
And many of the condo associations as well. Now keep in mind, homeowners have a full policy because they have to insure everything. Condo owners typically only had an interior policy. They only had to have insurance that covered the contents inside the condo building because the condominium covered the insurance on the outside. And all that was covered in their monthly HOA. But those fees have been going up. How high? One condominium building had their rates go up 209%. So for the majority of homeowners in Florida, insurance premiums are going up 25 to 35%. But for those who live in condominiums, they're getting hit the worst. Why? Because a lot of the insurance companies pulled out due to the lawsuits and storms and for whatever reasons, leaving only a few insurance providers who would write policies on some of these condo buildings.
You're right. Michigan does have the best water in the nation. That is absolutely correct. Not only do we have a state-of-the-art, well, let me revise that. Detroit has one of the best state-of-the-art water infrastructure facilities in the nation, which is completely separate. And this is the thing that people don't understand. It's separate from Flint. Flint hooked up to Detroit water after they had the water crisis in order to be able to protect their residents. The thing that happened with Flint was Flint separated in order to try to save money, and then they tapped into a completely different water source that was contaminated. And then when you take into consideration their infrastructure that had old lead pipes and stuff like that, it then created a dynamic that made their infrastructure absolutely trash, but they didn't have the tax dollars because it used to be a thriving city because it used to have so many UAW members and members that was working in the auto plants, but then they had got decimated, especially during the 2008 crisis, right? The recession. So, but Detroit specifically which is one of the reasons, and a lot of people didn't know this, but I'm tapped into the mayor, to the former Detroit mayor. He's one of my good friends. Oakland County and Macomb County fought to have some form of ownership of the Detroit water supply because they have one of the best treatment facilities in the entire nation. That's a fact. They have one of the best treatment facilities in the entire nation. And you also got it all day. And this is one of the reasons why I'm continuously investing in the Midwest, specifically Michigan and Detroit. Not Detroit, but the Detroit surrounding areas. And then I'm going to start investing in downtown Detroit, is that you are correct. The Great Lakes is the biggest fresh water basin in the entire world. When you're talking about water shortages, California, what's happening over in Arizona, down south, you're talking about the rising sea levels. The Great Lakes, which they do a phenomenal job protecting the Great Lakes against invasive species and stuff like that, have the largest freshwater basin in the entire world. Now you're talking. And this is one of the reasons why I think that infrastructure and understanding real estate as far as the dynamics of what's happening when you're making a long-term investment is important. That's why I'm making my long-term investments here in Michigan. Maybe even, expanding over to Ohio a little bit. But yes, the Great Lakes has the greatest and the best freshwater source in the entire world. You are 100% correct. Yep. And so while you see everybody making that migration the same way that they move from to Atlanta over to Houston, or they run down to Florida and stuff, I'm always looking at the smaller details that allow for me to make a better investment long term, and that is one of the factors. You are absolutely right. And so as people continue to move up, because the climate is going to go, the temperatures are going to continue to raise, the sea levels are going to continue to go up, I think that the best investment for me personally is absolutely going to be in the Midwest. That's where the long-term investment is for me. But I got my own theory. It's just my theory. It's just what my investment strategy is. One of the things I plan on talking about on Sunday when we go over Stock Club a little bit, and I give y'all an update on what's going on with my real estate portfolio. But yeah, man. Yeah, we're going to get to it.